Let's build the ultimate Game Gear. Whenever someone reaches out about modding or upgrading their Game Boy, Game Gear, anything like that, and they say what's available, I send them a few links to a few sites and I ask, pick whatever you like and I'll build it for you. This gentleman here went to a few sites and he picked out exactly what he wanted and he photoshopped a picture of his dream Game Gear and asked if I could build that. So let's do it. The Sega Game Gear was made to compete with the Nintendo's Game Boy. However, this one featured a colored picture as well as a backlit screen, but it took 9 batteries that lasted like 2 or 3 hours, so you had to constantly feed this thing. Now, those features didn't age super well because it looks pretty rough and nobody really wants to go through that many AA's, so we're gonna mod the heck out of this thing and make that dream Game Gear. I opened up this Game Gear and then I connected my own power board as well as my own audio board to just test the main motherboard itself. The Game Gear easily loaded up a game with audio, so I know that everything on the board is working perfectly fine, but there is a bit of a dim screen. This is a classic capacitor problem, so I'm just going to swap those all out. I'm using hot air to remove all the old capacitors as well as the components I'll no longer need for the LCD screen. This method is incredibly fast as this entire process took me about 6.5 minutes to complete. Retro6 did a video tutorial on how to do this, which I'll link below. I replaced all those old capacitors with new ones except for this little area right here. These capacitors are no longer needed as they were responsible for the LCD screen and the backlight, which we're completely getting rid of. So it just speeds up the overall process. Now our dream Game Gear has a green LED light. However, your standard Game Gear has a red one. So let's fix that. I applied heat to the 2 solder points of the bulb and I was able to easily pull it out. I cleaned the 2 holes with my solder sucker and then I put in the new green LED lights. And there we are, making Squid Games happy.
Red light, green light.
Now with the capacitors replaced and that green LED inserted, let's put on the new LCD screen. The board for the new screen screws in through the holes that originally held on the light reflector. Now you can manually wire these things in, however it is quite time consuming, so I like to use the easy install ribbons that you can purchase with it. With these ribbons, everything lines up exactly where it needs to be soldered. You don't need to waste time looking around the board to find your solder points, and you don't have to waste time trying to solder little tiny wires to each of those components. It only took me a few minutes to solder one of these ribbons on, so I moved over to the next side and basically just repeated the process. With the board fully installed, I put the screen inside of the bracket and then plugged it into the board around back. Then, last but not least, I cut the 32-volt wire because we no longer need that for this new upgraded screen. I loaded a game in so I can test the screen to ensure it works before I reassemble the entire Game Gear. And it's a good thing I tested it first because we have power, but it's not working. This video is sponsored by nobody because I'm not that popular yet. But if you want a hat or shirts all in different colors, we have stickers like a logo sticker or a Save the Console sticker. Everything's available in my store in the description there. Let's get back to the Game Gear. After a little playing around, I was able to get the screen up and running. At some point during the screen installation, this capacitor and its pads were ripped off. The original capacitor that was in this place had leaked and eaten away at the pads a little bit, so I should have been a little more careful around this area. However, it's no big deal. I was able to repair those pads and put the capacitor back on. Oh yeah, and also, I ended up having a bummed ribbon cable where half the connections were broken, so I had to run individual wires to all those broken points. Minor setbacks, I guess. Let's put a new shell on this thing. We're replacing our original shell with this UV printed one. Before putting the board into the new shell, I'm going to be putting in these 2 rechargeable batteries. These, in conjunction with the new screen, should last upwards of 10 to 12 hours. The batteries will be recharged via a USB-C connection that's built into the new power board that we're installing. This is a direct drop-in replacement that anybody can do and requires no soldering whatsoever. These batteries can be used on any model of Game Gear and doesn't matter if you have a new screen or if you have an original screen. There's a link to these rechargeable batteries in the description as well as every other part I've used in this build, including this drop-in audio amp that again requires no soldering and can be used in any version of Game Gear. Now with these rechargeable batteries, there is a bit of an excess of wire, so I wrapped them around the screw terminals and just held those in with hot glue so there's no chance of it rattling or shaking. And now it's time to reassemble. I'm going to be putting in a new speaker as well as amber translucent buttons and some clear silicone pads. Because we have the new screen with the board, this screw terminal will get in the way, so we just had to trim it off. With that terminal removed, the board will pop directly into this new shell. Now I don't want to entirely reassemble this Game Gear, so I'm just going to put in the 2 largest screws that hold in the game connector and then flip over the system without the board falling out. This allows me to test all the buttons to ensure that they feel good and that the silicone didn't get moved or folded when I put the motherboard back in. If something is wrong, I only have to remove 2 screws. With everything feeling good, I put in the remainder of the screws, connected the audio and the power board, and then inserted a game so I can test it out. With everything tested, I put on a UV printed screen protector and then added my own final touch. And now we have a dream Game Gear. A backlit LCD screen, an audio amp, USB-C rechargeable batteries that last up to, if not more than 12 hours, a sonic shell and screen protector, as well as a green LED. And here it is, the dream Game Gear. Now, I didn't really get to show it off, but you should listen to see how loud this amp goes. Deafening. I apologize for it being a little dark, but I noticed a little bit of a problem when I was testing this, and it's that green LED that we installed, well, it's a little bright. And it's actually, in fact, blinding, making it very difficult to play, so let's fix that. There is a resistor responsible for the LED, however, because we put a newer one in, we're gonna have to swap that out for a more powerful one. I don't know if powerful is the word, actually, more resistancy. Anyways, we upgraded it, and now that screen's a little more reasonable. Now the only thing left to do here is to thoroughly and properly test it, just to be sure. So, until next time, let's save the consoles. If you'd like to see more retro video games get clean, repaired, restored, and now upgraded, please consider hitting the subscribe button there. If you like this video, hit the like button because it would really help me out. As always, I encourage you to learn with me, but please don't imitate me without first doing your own research, just in case I made mistakes. Now, if you saw anything that I could do differently, please leave a comment down below so we can all learn from it.